we're going to talk to you a little bit about slackline. That's one of the things that we do here at CMA that we feel is a little bit out of the box for our kids. Mostly middle school. With us being a KA, we definitely stick it to the 6th through 8th grades with this one. If we were only in elementary, we would definitely do slackline with elementary. You can totally do it with elementary kids. It's just one we save for middle school. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the setup and kind of how we set the slackline up. And so that it works best for us. One thing you will not see that we would have out if we had a bunch of kids in here getting ready to do this would be blue mats. We stack our blue mats all around it. In the rare occurrence we have someone fall off, which has only happened maybe once or twice, but you want to have something on the floor for them to step off onto, or if they do fall, that it's soft on the floor. So basically what we do is we put our in-ground poles in the ground. So it's got to be something that's concreted into the ground. It can't be something that will move, because the slack line is going to get tight in just a second and it will pull on this pole. Because it's concreted into the ground, it won't pull the pole out. You do want to hook the slack line around the bottom of the pole, okay, not up top. You want to be down towards the bottom, and you want your anchor point, which is this first chair. It slides through a chair. You want it to be far away. The closer the chair is, it will pull the slack line up and will pull the pole out of its base, which then it becomes extremely unsafe. So you want it away from the first pole here. Our ratchet strap, which is what this is right here, which is what's going to make it tight here in a second, I want that away from the chair because I don't want anybody to walk across this when they're walking the slack line. We want to walk away from it out here. The other one is hooked to the other side, runs through a chair, and then comes to here. All we do is slide that ratchet strap. This is just like a big oversized ratchet strap for like a bed of a truck. And it's a super sturdy one. And so we just thread it through, and then I will start to ratchet it up until it gets tight. And it'll take a few pulls, and you'll start to feel it get tight. It's gonna get real tight across the top of the chairs, which is what I want. What it's doing is the slack line itself is pressing down on the chair. We've got tennis balls on our chairs to help protect our floor. We've always done that. And so you just keep going until you feel like it's good and tight, and then it locks into place so that will not come undone. You do have to come over after about the first 15 minutes. You'll have to come over about 2 times, because what will happen is the webbing in this will start to expand out and it'll get more slack in the line. You'll have to come over and unhook and ratchet it back up. We just tell the kids to step off for a second. We're going to tighten it up, give it a couple more clicks, lock it back in, and then it's normally good to go. So you'll notice we go from the bottom of the pole down here, up, hook together here, across the chair. Same setup on the far side so that it's all flat across. And then we have our chairs that go in the middle. Obviously, the less chairs you have in the middle, the more slack and more play in the line. The more chairs you have in the middle, the sturdier it is. So as we start, we actually put a couple of chairs through the middle, and we shorten up the distance on the kids. So this is so they get the feel of what the band is like, what it feels like to go across it. As they start to get good at it, we start to spread the chairs out. So it makes more slack and more play in the line, okay? So we're gonna actually flip-flop, and Carl's gonna show you how to walk on it, and we'll go over what that looks like with kids.
All right, we're gonna show you how to have the students start walking across the slack line. We normally pair them up in partners, so they take turns. We talk about safety, how you have to have a spotter. So the spotter's job is just as important as the person walking. The spotter's job is going to just walk right next to the person that's on the slack line. They're going to walk next to them. They're not going to hold their hands, okay? In this case, they're a little shorter, but normally it'd be a little taller. So they would just put their arm on the shoulder. So the spotter's job is just to keep the pace with the person that's going on the slack line, and they just put their hand on the shoulder of the spotter. They don't grab onto the spotter, and we don't try to save them and carry them up. If they feel like they're going to step off or fall down, we just tell them just to step off, and then they get back on the next chair that's available instead of trying to get back on in the middle where it's wobbling, okay? So I have my 2 daughters here. They're obviously not middle school age, so you can see you can do this with even elementary school. You just have to probably preach the safety, just even more so with this age. So Bryn's gonna walk across, Baylor's gonna be your spotter. And normally we'd have gym mats here, but I'm the parent and I signed the waiver, so we're good with that. So she's gonna keep going. And now I'm gonna go a little bit more. Now you can see there's a bigger gap between the chairs. So this one goes down a little bit more and it wobbles a little bit more. Well, Baylor's doing a good job of being a spotter. She's right next to her the whole time. She's not grabbing the person on there. And then when they get down to the end, they're gonna step down, okay? And then we'll get back to the end. And we'll get back and start at the beginning. Okay, we'll let Baylor have a turn now. Normally they go wait in line. They have a couple of students, and we normally tell the ones that are going, they have to wait until the next person's on the chair. It's not safe if you have two people on the band. It starts moving and bouncing. So if I was going with my partner, once I got to here, then they can go, okay? Now Baylor will go. And we tell them to go feet over feet. Try to keep their head center. Their center helps, the head helps them keep the balance. Try not to look down. Try to look up and look out. Kind of like when you're driving a vehicle instead of looking right in front of you. Okay? Keep going. Now this one will get kind of wobbly. But we'll have them do this a couple times, holding the spotter the whole time. And eventually they get to the point where the spotter just walks next to them. And then the person on the band at any time, if they feel like they can walk without it, they can take their hands off the spotter. And we tell them to keep their hands, they keep their hands up, right? Keep their hands up. That kind of helps keep their balance. But you can tell this is their first time on it, and they're probably not going to let go. And that's perfectly fine. We let it be a choice and what they feel comfortable with doing. And some kids will keep a hand on the whole time. All right, jump off, girls. Go back to the beginning, and we'll let the next person go. All right, so that's how we progress. Hang tight right there, girl. Don't go yet. That's how we progress through. And we might start where we do some other competitions or balance competitions that me and Todd might show you that are kind of fun to do with the older kids. But this is the progression. This is what we normally do for the first couple times through is with the spotter. And eventually the spotter will they'll always have a spotter, but the person on the band, if she steps off, you get back with her. You get back up here, wait for the spotter, and then see how she got back on there. So that's a good example of that to happen. Okay? Good job. All right.
Okay, so one of the other things that we do once we get through with some walking, we try to add in some things for the kids. One of the ones we do next is called the balance challenges. And so there's normally a couple sections with chairs, and so we make lines at these sections. So if I was first one up in the middle right here, Carl's first one up on that end, whoever's in the middle gets to decide if it's a right foot balance, a left foot balance, or a both feet balance, and they're the ones that say ready, set, go. So if I said we're gonna go right foot balance, I put my right foot up, Carl puts his right foot up, and I'm the one that says ready, set, go. When I do, we both will go up to our right foot and see who stays on the band the longest. Once you feel like you're starting to lose it, we always talk to the kids about saving it. You don't try to save it in this. If you feel like you're going off, you just step off. And our kids are really good about that. They don't just fall all over the floor. We kind of have some consequences for that. So we want them to just step off when they feel like they're losing their balance. So it's like winner is whoever stays up here the longest, and then they get to stay, and then the next people step up and they go. So if Carl and I were going right foot and I said ready, set, go, we both push up and see who can stay on. The winner, I had to step off. The cool part about this too is you're actually pulling on the band that they're standing on, which changes the balance a little bit. You're pulling down, this person's on it, they're pulling down. We've even got some kids that get really good at this, and they'll start to bounce on the line to try and mess up the person next to them to where they step off. But it's pretty cool. And then they just hop out of line, and the next ones go up. And this is normally by day 2 or 3 of cycle.
Perfect.
All right. Okay, this is chook ball, and it's named for the sound that the ball actually makes when it comes off of the angle rebounder. They say it makes a chook sound, so T-C-H-O-U-K-B-A-L-L, chook. The game was invented years ago by a guy in Europe, and too many people were getting injured in handball and soccer and stuff like that. So he wanted to come up with a game that was good conditioning for his athletes, but they didn't have to risk all the injuries that were happening in the other contact sports. So this is a no contact sport, and it's perfect for middle school because you're not allowed to play defense on the ball. You're not allowed to stop the other team from throwing. You're not allowed to stop the other team from catching the ball. So you can't intercept the passes. You just play, you can't guard the person with the ball. The only way you score is by throwing the ball off the angle rebounder, and it makes it hit the ground outside the coned off area. So nobody's allowed to go inside the restricted area. If I throw it and Todd's on the other team, his job is to try to catch it before it hits the ground. And then he can pass to a teammate, or he has the option, he can throw it right back off the frame, and then I can catch it. Now it's our ball. It's played full court, but you can play half court if you want, if you're set up. We do a lot of lead-up skills just using one court, but in full court, you would just put another one of these on the other side of their playing area, and normally set up a couple games, have small-sided versions, a couple kids on each team. But the cool thing about this game is that you can use either one. In most traditional games, if we're playing basketball, we're shooting on one goal and defending the other. In chook ball, you're allowed to shoot on both, and so therefore you have to defend on both. So you can reverse the court pretty quickly, and kids get pretty good about it. So one of the things, the lead-ups we do is we just play one-on-one. Normally you'd have a teammate, but we start with one-on-one and then go into two-on-two, up to three-on-three, and then we get into full court by the next couple of days. So if me and Todd are playing one-on-one, it's just we're practicing using the angle. If I throw it from this side, it's going to go over there, and it goes over there. So you have to read the angle of where it's going. And sometimes this is the actual official chook ball. It's like a mini soccer ball, but you can use a foam ball, like a gator skin ball or something like that. So we start it by touching the floor. That's like the reset button. That's like letting everybody know we're ready to go. So we play one-on-one. You get 3 steps with the ball, and then your team gets, when you start playing gameplay, you get 3 passes. So you get 3 steps to change the angle. If Todd wants to throw it right there, they come there, but if he takes 2 steps, I go there. If I take 3 steps this way, 1, 2, 3, go. So you 3 steps, or I don't have to take those steps. And if it hits the ground, that's a point for him, and then we would start it again. Okay, so that's kind of the lead up for one-on-one. I'll show a video later, show some kids that are playing 2-on-2 or 3-on-3. But you can't go inside the restricted area. There's lots of rules. Once kids figure it out, the best thing is there's no defense on the ball. So you're allowed to play catch with your teammates. If the ball touches the ground, then it's just a change of possession. If I throw it at the frame and I miss it completely, it's just a change of possession. So that's chook ball.
Okay, so one of the things that we feel we do that's also pretty out of the box is we do skateboarding here at CMA. We've done it every year that we've been at this school, and actually a few years before I came to CMA, I started doing skateboarding in elementary at McLean Elementary. We were the first elementary school in the state of Kansas to teach skateboarding. It's a program that you buy. You basically get all of this equipment. I'll go over each piece in just a little bit, and then we'll show a little video, a little bit of skateboarding. But Skate Pass is the actual program. It's based out of Colorado, and basically they got some PE teachers and some skaters together in kind of a room and said, how can we do this at school and make it safe and make it work for everybody? And so there's some things they said we have to have. One of the things was all the safety equipment, which is right here. And actually when you buy the program, you get all of the safety equipment. You get knee pads, elbow pads, wrist guards, and helmets for every kid. And you also get the boards. The skaters wanted the boards to be like pro model boards. So the board is actually a pro deck. It's really nice. And then the PE teachers wanted certain things on the boards that wouldn't tear up the floors, and that would tell the kids like where the front of the board is, where the back of the board is. And so there's a lot of stuff going on with the board that's actually really cool for the PE side of kind of the stuff that we do in here. The safety stuff is the key, and there is a waiver form. Our district, I went to risk management, talked to them, and they said you gotta have a waiver. If you're gonna put kids on wheels, we feel like that's the safest. So our kids have to sign off, and their parents have to sign off that they're okay with them doing it. Injuries, I've never had broken bones or anything like that on any of the skating. I've done it for years. Kids are really low to the ground, so when they fall, it's so much safer and easier than when we fall. We do this one mostly in middle school, but we've also done it in elementary before. And I've actually gone all the way down to kinders, believe it or not. I've had a bunch of 5-year-olds putting helmets, elbow pads, knee pads, and wrist guards on. You got to teach them. They're actually probably the best skaters, to be honest, because they have such a low center of gravity. I'll put this stuff on. You'll be able to, I think for most of you probably seen safety equipment before. The board is actually really unique. They cut the grip tape at the tops so that this stuff is like sandpaper if you've ever skateboarded before. So if the boards do flip over, that stuff doesn't tear up your wax, so it's not all over the floor. They paint the logo on the bottom of the board and they short it so it doesn't go to the end. So if a kid does drag their nose or their tail on the ground like this to stop, which we actually don't teach that, but if a kid does do that on accident, the paint doesn't come off on the floor. The wheels are a special plastic that will not mark the floor. They don't leave any marks. So you can be all over this floor, skate all over it, and you'll never know where you've been and where you haven't been. They cut the bolts on the trucks in so that if the board sits like this, the bolts won't scratch the floor. I mean, they did a really good job with the board to make sure that it was, kind of PE teacher approved, so it wouldn't tear things up. So what we'll do here is we'll cut here for a second, and then I'll kind of throw stuff on and just show you a little bit of pushing and riding and kind of how we start teaching the kids some of those things. So now that I've got all the stuff on, basically from here what we teach kids is if they have to decide if they want to be a regular footer or a goofy footer, and we practice which foot they're most comfortable with at the front, and we really just practice pushing and riding, getting 2 feet on. A lot of people ask if we go into tricks. We do like some real basic stuff, just how to do a grab on the board and ride, how to turn. We do it's called carving, where you kind of swivel around things. We do talk about tic-tacking, which is when you use the back of the board to move the board. And that's about as far as we get. We don't really get into any ollies or anything that's... We could if we had more time and we got into some more advanced stuff, but that's about where we ended. For the most part, it's just teaching kids how to get on and ride and see if that's something that they enjoy. And our whole point behind, you saw the slack line in this, and I was trying to get kids exposed to different things that they can try and decide if that's something they want to do outside of school. Basically, regular foot and goofy foot. So I just put one foot up at the front. The front of the board is where the white screws are. So the 2 white screws tell me that's the front. That's what I'm going to use as the front. And I just put one foot there and roll it back and see how that feels. If it feels good, that's my foot. That's my foot that goes in the front. I'm a goofy footer. I've been a goofy footer my whole life. It's like when you throw a baseball, right-handed or left-handed, or a softball, right-hand or left-hand. One's going to feel good, one's going to feel weird. If I flip over like this and put this foot up here, it just feels awkward. Doesn't feel comfortable. So for me, I'm a goofy footer. And then we just practice pushing, getting the back foot on, riding, leaning on your rails so it'll turn, and we just go across the gym. So these kids just ride, and it's awesome in here because there's no friction. There's nothing to slow the board down. It's super smooth. They just ride all the way across, and then they flip around, and then we ride back. And as they get more advanced, we start getting into how to turn, how to carve, so I can make the board turn by leaning on it. We start to get into a few more things. But that's basically where the end of the unit happens. And that's a couple weeks. By the time you go over safety equipment, the boards, how to use them correctly, and then a lot of riding. And kids love to just ride. It just feels free in here. There's nothing to slow you down, and it's great. Do we have kids fall? Absolutely. You put any kids on wheels, at some point they're going to fall. But for the most part, being all padded up like this, kids, we teach them how to fall. We teach them how to go to their knees, not put their hands down, not try to brace themselves. But I think the kids really look forward to it. And to be honest, the kids that ask for skateboarding the most are middle school girls. Our middle school girls are the ones that ask for it the most. They're super interested in it, and girls skateboarding is really starting to take off right now. There's a lot of really prominent female figures that are skateboarding that are putting it out in the mainstream where it should be. I think, and that's fantastic. So skateboarding, man, with a bunch of K through 8 kids. That's what it looks like.